Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And you can support us via PayPal, Patreon, Bitcoin, and through our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Jutland, Denmark. It's the 21st of April 2021 and our special guest today is a mystic, a Gnostic, a spiritual teacher and lecturer, and an author of many fascinating books that has been translated into many different languages. He's a former rock star in Denmark who changed his path dramatically when he became a seer and a way-shower. He has been with us before, and we are thrilled to welcome him back on the show, Lars Muhl. Lars Muhl, thank you so much for inviting us here to your amazing place in the mainland of Denmark, Jutland, the countryside of this wonderful farm, this great place that you have here, which is also the place for your mystery school. It's nice to have you back on the show. In the first episode that we did with you a couple of years ago, people can watch this in order to get a lot of information about your background, your history, how you were a rock star, a rock musician in Denmark who turned spiritual seer and way shower and a spiritual teacher and mystic and into Gnosticism and all of the things that you have studied and been teaching for such a long time. And we also talked about your own mentor who led you on this path, the seer, and you did quite a celebrated documentary about this seer, and a lot of this is covered in our first episode as well. But first of all, welcome back on Age of Truth TV. It's great to have you here with us again.
Welcome. You're welcome.
My first question to you is, what do you consider to be the most important and profound problem right now here in 2021 facing the world today?
It is that most people are not aware that we live in multiple realities and we have access to multiple realities. And I think this, right now we are in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis and all those things that goes with it. But actually, the real main problem is that we don't know who we really are, where we come from, what we are doing here, and where we are going. And as long as we are not up to these, can answer those questions, and I will come back to that because there might be a solution for that, we will not solve any of the problems that we are facing right now and in the future. We can call it this, we can call it that, but if you're not aware of who we really are and from where we come, there will be no solutions for anything. We will just continue to go round and round in the same hamster wheel. We will call it something new every season, but it will be exactly the same all over.
But why this huge problem right now as we are facing this so-called pandemic? This is a global situation. It's a global nightmare that we are in at the moment, and everybody is faced by it in a very negative way, whether you believe it to be true or not. But why now? I mean, when we look at it from a political perspective, we can see what is going on.
Yeah.
Tightening the grip on the control system on the population.
Yeah.
But you are a mystic. You are a spiritual way shower. How do you see it in a more spiritual sense?
It's funny when you say, how do you see it? Because, right from my childhood, due to a very sensitive nature, already as a very young boy, I had some experiences where I suddenly, it was like the veil was just drawn aside, and I saw in glimpses how the etherical reality was like a net of light interconnected with each other, and it went through my little sister and through the walls to everything in the living room where this happened. And of course, as when you're only 8 years old, you're not able to cope with such things. You don't, what is this? And you don't know. So when my sister died, I think I told you about it in the last interview, that was the opening to me, that I started to see things and to be aware of things that other people seemed to be aware of. So I could not talk to anybody of it. So that was, to make that short, was my reason why I went into the music business, in order to find a place to be here, because I could not cope with reality as it was. So it wasn't before I met my mentor, the seer, that he actually started to tell me that the ability to see through that veil that you could call the illusional veil, behind that is the real reality. And most people have actually what do you call it, experienced that as children, but somehow are not able to perceive it and understand what was going on. So they will just kind of forget it all, or being told, don't go in there because that's not so and so.
And the educational system is dumbing down everybody.
Exactly. So we are just kind of shaped by the norms and by all those limitations. I think that right now we are in a situation where we will be forced to face other realities. And it's funny, you know, because when you go into the old Hermetical schools, just read the Hermetica, it's actually saying, you can read it there, that we are able to do anything. We can travel even before everything was created. We can travel out of time and space and see things from outside in and inside out. There's no limitations. The only limitations are actually our own fears, our own, you know, preconditioned perceptions, and you know, it takes some guts to step out of the ordinary and the novelty of everyday life. But we are so caught up in it that most people think that that is what it's all there is. And that is actually a tiny, tiny little speck of what is real. It's actually, that is an illusion, you know, to think that. Not that it's not real to go and buy a car and have a wife and have some children, but it's you know, to think that that's the only reality, that's the illusion. You know, that's why they are talking about when they say life, as you know it, is an illusion. No, not that way. But our perceivance of it, you know, that we think that's the only thing there is. Okay, we will have to cope and try to be like everybody else. And isn't that what we have, as a young kid? You want to be like everybody else. You don't want to be an outcast. Now you realize
or
that...
you're being mocked or teased because of it.
Now you realize that you are an outcast. And you're being all the way through, in different ways, of course. You might have some experiences that makes you have glimpses into that reality that I'm talking about. I may have some other glimpses that talk about another piece of that reality. And when we put it all together and we mature and start to live by what we experience and not what we are told, then things are changing. But you see, most people, they haven't got the guts to step out and say, I think I'll leave the train right here on this station and let the train go where somebody wants it to go.
So do you think that when you tap into a certain reality, we were just talking about multiple realities maybe, yes. Many parallel universes, when you tap into one and you can see that and you feel that and you have a clairvoyant moment or how you perceive it and download the information. Yeah. And if I do the same, but I see something different or somebody else who has these abilities sees something else, we have a lot of people on the show that this is how it is because I have seen it, I have my guides, my spiritual guides or whatever. But do you think that we could all sometimes be tapping into different realities and different dimensions? And that is where the confusion sometimes happens.
The real confusion happens. You know, I was told also this by the seer, that every one of us is a channel. But our personalities, you know, information comes in and has to go through the filter of you and the filter of me and filter of everybody else. So of course my personality or my issues, whatever I am dealing with, have to deal with this, are kind of coloring the information. That's how we can see the exact same thing and it comes out differently, you know? So it takes maturity. And that is why it's also very, very important that we have the guts to look at our own shadows. You know, because if you haven't done your shadow work, and I know I've met a lot, being 70 years now, I've met a lot of people in the so-called spiritual society who kind of are well-meaning people and very skilled and wonderful people, but somehow have forgotten to go that extra mile and have the guts to look into, the back mirror that will find that angle that is sometimes hard to face,
Especially when you're teaching somebody else,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of ego involved, right? Also.
We have to deal with that ego. Really have to deal with that ego. And I'm not talking about the ego that wants to look good on a photo or, whatever. Innocence.
That's superficial.
Come on. I mean to go real deep. Why is it that I always react in this same way every time I meet this thing or faced with that thing? How come I am always kind of finding myself down in that hole, I have to really not only try to do it, but want to do it, It's not something that I need to be forced to, but you see, my teacher, the seer, every night he sat down on his bed before he went to bed and went through whole day and just to see if he could have done differently. He went through all his cases with his clients. Could I have done this differently? Oh, there's something that is nagging me, I have to go in and look at this. And he knew exactly that he had problems. But he was able to, every time he went into his office in the morning to deal with clients, to leave those problems outside. And as he said, don't worry, Lars, they don't run anywhere. They'll wait for you. When you're finished with your clients, you will come out and you can put on all your own issues again. The good thing is that you need to be able to, when you are dealing with other people, to let that go.
And people don't do that enough,
No,
who are
because
spiritual teachers?
A lot of people, also teachers that I have met, are kind of living by that energy of others and also of their admiration, the guru thing. And the guru thing is over. It has been over for many, many years. And
But don't you get that as well from all of your clients? You've been teaching people for so many years, and I know that there's a lot of people who look up to what you are saying as well.
Yeah, but they will have no chance here by me. If I meet that, immediately I tell people, listen, this is just a projection. Every time somebody dream about me in a dream or they are projecting something, it's because they are not yet able to take responsibility for their own wisdom, So that's how it is. I did the same with the seer before I met him. But immediately he cut me down. He did not want anything of that. He said, well, please don't waste my time. If that's what you're after, go home and find somebody else. Because here we are working seriously,
Didn't you already experience that when you were a rock singer and you were on television in the newspapers?
It's funny you say it, because I think that was what made me ready to do this work. I have gone through the whole shadow things and by yourself, you have been in showbiz also for years, that you meet so many wonderful people and everything in life is kind of condensed and very, very, it's all there, within this little community of colorful people. You have all the insanity and all the love and all the everything just double up, So you get it really up in your face, So you cannot run away from it. You have to deal with it. 1 year, 1 season, you're big success. Next year, nobody wants to talk to you. Oh. So your ego is really, really tried there. And it's like cutting a diamond, a raw diamond. For every season, you are polished. And if you mature with it, it's actually also an initiation to be in showbiz, as I see it. Anyway, that's where I learned so many things that I can use here, and I'm not fooled by people who wants to make anything out of me. Or I know exactly who I am, what I'm here for. So I'm not. I'm too old to end up in those games again.
Wouldn't you say that a lot of people who are interested in the spiritual, and a lot of people who's been interested in New Age, also religious people, but also in the more spiritual side of things where you use clairvoyance and other tools, that some, certainly not all, but some people have issues, a lot of personal or emotional issues.
We all have.
And we all have.
Yeah.
But there are some that really come for some kind of salvation or to solve their problems, and then they look to somebody who is a role model or a seer because they have a connection to this. But it doesn't really solve any problems, does it?
No, I mean, when I was meeting with the seer, I had my problems, and he got me out of bed, like this, But afterwards, I had to do the hard work, and it was really hard work, So there was no I don't be romantic about this, because if you really step into the spiritual way, if you think your problem is solved by doing that, that's where they really begins, because you have to face yourself. If you bypass that thing, forget it.
And do you still face your own problems?
Of course, I work with that every day. I have to. And if I don't, I will get it right up in my face. I'm always tried. And that is why we are here. We are both here to be tried and to be polished, like that diamond, as it's all about, but also to give what we have to give. And the more mature you get, the more the stone is maybe getting smaller and smaller, but also more intense. And it's being truthful in the end,
So have you learned always to follow your heart? Or do you still compromise?
I don't compromise. Never. Sometimes I'm in doubt what to do, because I've always been strange by being here. Right from when I came in, that's what I'm coping with. That by nature, I find it very peculiar sometimes to be here. And sometimes very tragicomical, and it's both tragic and comical, so it takes a good humor, and without the humor, I could not survive here. That's
Absolutely
for sure.
not. And do you think, speaking about this world crisis we're facing right now because of this pandemic, is this also a separation between the aware, the enlightened, and the more gullible, trusting, fear-based, easily suggestible, and complying good citizens that they're called, who help spread the political propaganda, the state propaganda, the fear porn that we get from the media and the politicians, which has actually enslaved humanity for centuries, more actually?
It doesn't matter what we call different kinds of people. We are all enlightened beings, right from the beginning. The problem being that, as we talked about before, that the norms and the upbringing, the social conditioning and so forth, are cutting people away from that enlightenment. It is like, we were talking about before this interview, that Yeshua or Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Yes, it's a state of being. Don't put your light underneath a bushel, but let it flow out so everybody can be enlightened by it. When we are cut off to that light within. That's then you will become somebody that is easily fooled, and like we are seeing,
But we're really seeing this separation right now. It's a desperation. People are being removed from their families, relationships are breaking up, even marriages, and people can't go and visit their elders, their their grandparents at these nursing homes. because of this enormous fear and the social distancing, and we see the economic crash, which was actually set to crash in 2022, but we see it already now. This is April 2021. World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and all of these things that we hear connected with the shots and all of those things that we are in the middle of at the moment. But this separation, is this not a plan? Is this a sinister, satanic plan above the political? And if there are some good helpers, or let's say Jesus or Yeshua, energy, you talk a lot about that, or the good aliens that people also say work for the greater good and for to help humanity. Why don't they intervene now? I mean, we need it right now more than ever. Why this total state of desperation?
Why? How come you think that they don't intervene? They do. They are doing. They are.
Doesn't seem much like it, does it?
It depends of where you want to go with all this. I think we are in a situation right now where we need to wake up on a larger scale. And this is not about, it is for those very limited who stands behind this crisis. It's greed and money. That's all it is, and power. But it's so illusionary. There's so much more, that's what I mean. It's so tiny speck of the reality we have. So maybe, just maybe, we need to collapse. Maybe the economy needs to collapse. Maybe everything needs to collapse. Maybe we need to find ourselves in some camp, taken away from everything, before people wake up.
That doesn't sound very nice.
Shut down the beers, shut down the Netflix and the television, everything that makes people sit there and just, comfortable,
But people still have access to the information right now. Today, it's a choice whether or not you want to wake up. I mean, in the beginning, people were not sure about this. They were full of fear. Could this be true? But now they have access to the information, and a lot of people still want to believe this thing, and they do this propaganda. And it is separating people. I mean, on a bigger scale, on a smaller scale, depending on how much you get involved and how open-mouthed you are.
First of all, I think those who think themselves to be aware, it is those people's responsibility to create bridges instead of separations, and not abyss. We need to connect. If we allow this separation, that is exactly what some of these powers want, And even if there's a lot of people who are not aware of that, if you are, then you have a responsibility to, instead of create more separation, to create bridges. Even if it takes that if you go and talk to a stone, you'll need a lot of time before you know how to connect to that stone. But it can be done, You can connect to stones, you can connect to trees, but it's on other levels. And people who are conditioned in a special way, they are not bad people, they are not evil people, and they are not enlightened. They are enlightened beings. They're just not aware of it. So instead of, just remember, when you were in a bad spot, maybe when you were young or when, you knew people who didn't see all your faults, all your failures and all your mischiefs. They saw that tiny little flame that was burning somewhere in there in the dark. They concentrated on that instead of concentrating on all your lapses and all the things you weren't yet, They saw in that light who you really were. And just imagine the difference that makes. That if you, instead of keep creating separation, but try to see the light within those people, maybe they can also come out and say, oh, yeah. Because you should imagine that most of those people, they think themselves nothing. So that's why they give themselves over to a higher authority, which is actually the lowest authority you can get on this place. I mean, it's done with. It's finished. It's just a matter of time when it's gone, you know. So when the reset, the great reset that people are talking about, I hope it comes tomorrow, because the faster we can get there, you know. And there's, for me, no doubt that what we are after, what will come sooner or later, is that man has to open up towards fifth dimensional reality and so forth. There's so much there waiting for us to be able, and it has nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It has nothing to do with that. I mean,
are you sure? Because they want to link the human mind and perception
I know,
to AI right now.
But people who think that this is the solution to everything, they don't know what man is, what kind of being man is.
But isn't that what let's say, the dark occult elitists know? And that because humanity is waking up, and humanity has been waking up on a larger scale in the last 20 and 10 years, even more so that now this awakening that we have been seeing for the past several years had to be stopped in order to keep this new world order structure still functioning, so that they want the human mind and the brain, the perception, to be linked to the Neuralink, Elon Musk thing, the 5G smart grid, and to the super brain computer, artificial intelligence, that supposedly is connected to otherworldly entities, perhaps even, and that's where also maybe Gnosticism comes in with the archons and the realms, and maybe reptilian entities and all of these things. But artificial intelligence is not real intelligence. This is
it has nothing
else
to do with what we're talking about. I mean, I'm talking about the real deal. I'm not talking about something stupid like artificial intelligence.
But if it takes over our minds,
it doesn't. It won't. Not yours anyway, and mine. If you allow this to happen, maybe, but I mean...
And that's why I asked this question. This separation between the enlightened, it's a grand word, and it's not, I don't mean it to be condescending towards those who are sleeping. Yeah. Aware, the people who are aware of these things, who've been studying, researching for years like we have, and those who still believe the game, who still believe in the fear porn and the media propaganda. Is this separation necessary? Because there are some people that are a little bit hardcore in what they talk about, what's going to happen now, that this will separate those more gullible people from the more aware.
I don't believe in separation, and I you know, when you separate things up into, right now it's like two football teams, you know, the blue and the other, you know, whatever you call it. Red and blue, you know.
Red pill, blue pill.
And if you're on the one team, or if you're on the other team, it's nonsense. It's stupidity. There's one team here, but we are, of course, you know, if we, you know, there is actually entities coming in from other universes, from other realms. We call them aliens, and they are dealing with. Some of them are able to physically show themselves, you know, to appear physically,
to manifest.
Yeah, manifest, and others are contacting people on different levels, and the informations that I've got from. Both from people who have worked in NSA, NASA, and stuff, is that when we are talking about God, you know, they are also talking about God. They just have other names for it. But it is what you would call a huge consciousness that is everywhere. God is pure consciousness. And there is a universal law that I don't know what name it has, because it's different names, but I call it the law of light. And the law of light is kind of holding everything together. And if you break that law, you talk about reptilian energy. And they are kind of fallen angels. The story of the fallen angels is actually the
Nephilim.
It's nothing new, you know. It's been for thousands since man ever came in here, and we are the result of other civilizations coming in here and doing different mating between different kinds of entities. That be what it is, you know. What some of those aliens have told us is that if we break that cord that we are connected with this consciousness, if we turn our backs to God or that God consciousness, that's when we are like orphans. Suddenly, we are cut off from the big consciousness that have all the answers. So if we were perfect from the beginning and we are enlightened, how come we have made such a mess out of everything? Because we are disconnected. And religion actually means to reconnect. Religare means to reconnect. So that is what religion really is all about, that we reconnect to that power, to that consciousness.
But instead, we see the religions all over the world. We see people interpret it, it like giving their energy away to a higher power.
Because we are social conditioned, and we are conditioned. Also, why should religion be different, you know, from everything? It's something that goes all over. Now we will just say we don't throw out religion, but we throw out all the false religions, all the gibberish that is all around it, you know, and we will concentrate. You know, we will
But how could it happen that we became disconnected?
When we came into this world, we started to identify with our senses, and we was starting to be, you know, greedy, and we wanted this, we wanted, you know, that, and we have our passionate erotic thing coming up also, which is a challenge when we came in here. You should imagine many of the aliens that comes in here are totally doing this on a, you know,
non-sexual.
No, but it's on a totally other. You know, in my book, the old manuscripts, in the third book, The Grail, I'm talking about a woman called Sylvia in Copenhagen, that was initiated in the Order of the World Mother, and she told me all about this. How it is possible for us in the future to make love on a distance. You know, it's something that's heart to heart, third eye to third eye, and the ecstasy is so much more than, you know, what we call orgasm and ecstasy and stuff like that.
It's like the preparation for that is like tantra, huh?
You see, all that is happening right now, there's a lot about gender, you know. A lot of young people feel that they are neither man or woman.
But that's a political agenda.
There's a gender problem. A lot of people coming in now that feel that they are something in between.
But also to separate the sexes because they think we're too many and they really want depopulation, huh? This is part of the UN Agenda 21 plan.
I think that the real thing about those souls coming in is that you should remember, when we leave this world, we are both masculine and feminine. When we are reborn, we become masculine or feminine, yeah? I'm not talking about man or woman. I'm talking about masculine and feminine.
We have both.
Exactly. But most people, you are mainly masculine and secondary feminine. But there is man who is opposite, you know? And so it has nothing to do with man or wife, man or woman. It can be man and woman and woman. It doesn't matter. It's plus or minus.
So it's the masculine that attracts the feminine,
yeah.
and then
so
you have both.
We have a very, very important secret here, because that has something to do with how everything was created.
But don't you think they're trying to screw up our perception and our togetherness, trying to separate the sexes?
It's only because we have forgotten, most people have forgotten who they are, that they can be manipulated. If you know who you are, you can stay totally in your center and nothing can be done to you.
Feminism plays a very
you could-
big part
yeah,
here
you
in
could say that,
Denmark and in Scandinavia.
But who's-
And the women are becoming more masculine, and the men are becoming more feminine, and actually more like you can't really see them anymore.
But it was never meant to be like that. It's totally misconceived. Who says that the way your perception of what is masculine and feminine, maybe that's not what it really is, you know. So I think we have totally misunderstood all about that.
I think it's Martinus or Rudolf Steiner who talks about us or in future generations becoming more androgynous, not male, not female in the same way. And we see a political initiative certainly, which is not very positive. But could there be something positive or a message there? It's very, very confused at the moment and doesn't seem very right.
One thing we need to cope with when we are incarnated on this, where we are now, is that we are either man or woman. Yeah. So that is where things are now. And you are kind of a universe in yourself, you know. I am, and so other people are. So that's what we are dealing with. But how do we reconnect to that God consciousness that we're talking about? You see, when some of those aliens, they have talked to all those kind of different people they have been in contact with, and warning. I mean, it's all happening after 1945, when the first atom bomb was blown in New Mexico. The first one they tried, you know, the test bombing, it was Little Boy and Fat Man was the two bombs called. You see, it was for all the scientists who was involved in this. Einstein was one of them, Oppenheimer. They wanted to find God, or the creational secret within the smallest speck of reality they could find. They found the atom. They split it in two. Did they find God? No, they found God's shadow. They found the devil, the most destructive thing on earth ever. Do you know what happened? 1 month later, it was like a question that was thrown out in the universe. Is there really a God? The answer came 1 month later in another desert, in Nakamadi in Egypt, where another bomb was found in the desert. Some manuscripts that have been there for more than 2,000 years. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Truth, the Gospel of, you know, Bob Philip, and so forth. You know, a whole bunch of knowledge, hermetical knowledge, was suddenly, and there you have the answer. Did you know what in one of the capsule where they found those scrolls, there was a small message: may these scriptures be found by a generation that understands the truth of these scriptures. That was a message from 2,000 years ago to our generation. And I'm totally certain that if that atom bomb had been blown 2 years before or 2 years later, those were also found 2 years before or 2 years later, but as an answer to a question. So
the Gnostic Writings there.
Exactly.
And can we not depend more on these Gnostic writings that were found in Nagamadi, because they were not found before, they were not taken by the Vatican, they were not changed, they were not tampered with to change the story?
You see, the whole story about it was, you know, I followed it right from when they were found, and was waiting for many years to get the first English translation of these, and I got it in 1979 or something. I got the first translation of the...
That was before John Lamb Lash's interpretation.
It was
Or-
those scientists who were that, you know, in the beginning, all the scholars said, this is without any interest because they, you know, it's Gnostic. You know,
They would say that, wouldn't they?
But today, we know that the Gospel of Thomas might be the very earliest Gospel of all Gospels, also the New Testament, and it is from Syria, and it used to be in Aramaic. So this is where we are now at this state. And actually, when you go into the Gospel of Thomas, there's nothing about Jesus did that or went there. It's about what he said. Only sayings of Jesus.
About searching for truth, and people need to search for the truth and listen to,
it's
listen to that voice within.
Very much about the feminine and masculine within you, and about shadow work. You know, a scholar like Carl Gustav Jung, when he saw those scriptures the first time, he said, I'm astonished. I mean, here we thought that we have invented everything. These people knew everything. You know, this is old hermetical, that goes way back. I mean, thousands of years back.
With very evolved civilizations, probably, and
no, I don't think. I don't think civilizations. I think mystical societies, like the Essenes, like the Therapists, and before them, mystery schools, where people, they invested themselves. You see, we are talking about not natural science, but about sacred science. And sacred science, a sacred scientist, the difference between a nature scientist and a sacred scientist is that the nature scientist, he will investigate things outside himself, you know, looking into something from outside. A mystic will go inside and use himself or herself as the laboratorium, and look at things there, how they are perceived, and go deeper, and have the guts to go deeper. And even if it takes, whatever it takes, to find the deep truth about things by experience, not about looking at something and measuring it or whatever. I mean,
they also talk about humans at that time had the ability to, well, maybe to teleport, but at least to use an uncalcified pineal gland, to use very strong mind powers to move objects.
We are living in the world of questions, and we are seeking answers in the world of questions. And the answers we get in the world of questions are very limited. In order to find real answers, you have to go to the world of answers. How do we go there? By bypassing the intellect and the mind. The mind are very, very good. Without it, we could not cope here. And we needed to reflect on certain things, you know. And we decide, I want to do this or I want to do that. Fine. But the minute that you have made that decision, this is the masculine thing, made that decision, you must totally erase it and forget all about it. And then you go from here to here, and you start to go into that kingdom of heaven that Yeshua is talking about, that all the Sufi masters are talking about, and so forth. All the Hermetical masters are talking about. How do you do that? How do you really dare to go into that darkness and open up and become that light that is needed in that darkness? You see, when we talk about dark matter, it is all the places where that is unconscious about itself, you know. The minute something becomes conscious about itself, it is like turning inside out a football, for example, or the reality. And suddenly you have created something. That is what's happening when you have a glimpse of the other reality, and you get so much inspiration. You know exactly what to do.
And creation happens in the mind.
It's perceived by the mind, but it happens on a much higher level. Of course, in order to take it in and to perceive it and to start to reflect on it, that's a filter. And then you come back to when you get information. You get the information from the world of answers, if you know how to go there. And then it is colored by your mind. and your mindset. So what we are working
Consciousness.
with, and when we are working with spiritual work, and we want to polish the stone, that is hopefully that the more we mature, the more clarity we will get, So there will be less and less personality to deal with, and more clarity, So I can so much feel that the information I get now is so much more clear than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because I was not aware of what I got. In many things I can see now when I look back, now I understand why it came, But at the moment when it happened, I did not know. And this is something I've been dealing with, that I have been open like a book without knowing what it was before. Many years later, Christ, yeah. Now I see it,
So would you suggest to people who are listening to what you're saying right now, that if they get like a download or an intuitive feeling, they should stop for a moment and really think about it and think of how to interpret it, and not wait for the answer that maybe they'll get in 10 years, unless they're not
always
ready for it.
Always question everything you get. Not because you should doubt it, but it's really, really healthy to have the guts to... what I did when I was working with the seer, that was when I wrote my epic work, the Trilogy, the Seer, the Magdalene, the Grail, It took me 7 years. And within those, up to then, I have studied for many years about all the Gnostic scriptures, the Hermetical scriptures, and all these kinds of... So I was really well equipped when it came to knowledge, But it was by meeting the seer that I understood I had to kind of bypass that intellect that knew all these things. So when I started to write, I got a lot of information. And what I did with this information, I went over to Lars, who had studied all these things,
Your other self.
Yeah, and started to ask him, could this real be true, in order for what you know about? Yeah, maybe I'll pick the book for you so I can show you what it is. You can see here, and Joseph is right about everyday life at the time of Jesus, and this could not be.
So was it like automatic writing, where you weren't really aware? Was it a download in the moment?
Everything that came that had to do with past times were downloaded totally, but I checked it. Always checked it. Could this be really,
So it wasn't just because you were enormously influenced by, you've read at least, you must have read thousands of books. You are like a book addict. You have a library here that is quite extraordinary, and lots of mystical books and about the Gnostics, about religion, you name it. So you've really read so many books.
Yeah.
Could that not have influenced what you were writing?
No, because that was why after meeting the seer, that was the school I started I started totally from scratch. He asked me to forget everything, because this is the real deal. Then he took me up and down that mountain, carrying stones, day in and day out, until I was completely broken down.
Literally?
Yeah.
Carrying stones on your back?
Exactly.
Up that mountain?
And then he started to, he was not a man of many words. It was by showing, not by telling.
Was he more primitive than you had thought?
He was actually much more sophisticated, but I found out much later. There was a purpose for everything he did, but he did not tell me. That was it.
He was a little bit hardcore, wasn't he?
No, it was, if you, as I have been studying so much, I wanted to find answers to everything. Here you meet a person who didn't give you any answers. You must try to figure it out yourself just by watching, listening, whatever he said, or did. So, first of all, I had to look through all his issues in order to see the real person, the real man. And when I saw that, I was so moved by it, because I really understood. And it helped me also to start to look at other people with totally new eyes. That even if I saw a person here that so clearly was not connected, didn't mean that that person was stupid or evil or whatever. So I started to work with, to try to see that flame within that person, because that was what the seer did to me. He looked through all my noise, right into that little flame in there, and he started to nourish it instead of just taking it out,
Was the chemistry right between you? It must have been.
No.
No?
No, not in the beginning. At one time I really had it, like up to here, and I really was fed up by him and all his rigid things, But at the same
It was tough.
Yeah, it was just later that I really saw that he did it out of deep love for me, and because he saw possibilities in me that nobody saw and I did not even dream of,
So is it often that somebody who's a mentor try to push you away in order to see if you actually stay?
Yeah, also many things, probably. Yeah.
Could we? I mean, lots of researchers into these mystical fields and also into to the topics of ufology and alien life on other planets. They talk about the possible fact that we live within a computer simulation, that we are in a computer simulation, like a testing ground for many living species connected to this intergalactic federation of light, which I think actually was what you were talking about before, with lots of different evolved alien species being in this order, but in a good way, they say. And then eventually planet Earth became quarantined in a way, a matrix within the matrix, frequency control by Saturn and its beams, orchestrated. They also talk about by possibly the reptilian alien race, the Draconians from the Draco star constellation, likely controlled by the Archons, which leads us to Gnosticism and what, the Gnostic Writings they're found in Nagamadi in 1945. And they talk, of course, a lot about these demonic entities that the Christians call the demons and the Muslims call the jinn, the Archons, with the demiurge as the king of the Archons. So, and they say that the Archons are rulers, each related to one of the 7 planets. How do you think, could this be true? And if there is this intergalactic federation of light who is supposedly doing something good for the universe, or maybe multiple universes or whatever, did they allow Earth to become a testing ground with all species mixed together, whether we can be here or not, and go through all of this hell? Because a lot of people say that this is hell, this is the hell, and we have to go beyond that. And that reincarnation is also an archontic realm, 4th dimensional realm, to go back with a wide memory, go into this false white light, seeing relatives, luring you back to experience instead of going directly to source, God, force, you name it, the creator. So why could this even be, if we are in this computer simulation, why could this be this testing ground, this dark place?
The idea of comparing this to any kind of computerism is so primitive. It's beyond this. I mean, this is nonsense, we are, if you allow, it is whatever you make of it, You can actually choose to believe whatever you want, and we are co-creators. You can create anything you want. So if that's the reality you want or think, it's yours. Please take it.
And then it'll be real.
It will, yeah.
But why are we still together experiencing this darkness?
We are talking about only the earth, the Earth is just a tiny speck in a... There's millions of places like this, you know, different levels of consciousness. And we have been, many of those who are on Earth have been incarnated other places. You know, that's what Yeshua is talking about. My Father's kingdom has many mansions. There's many other levels of consciousness. Not even physical things, but only also spiritual levels. You imagine there's souls coming in here who are here only for the reason to be helpers, who come from spiritual levels. What we call
new souls.
What we call bodhisattvas, you know, helpers, or sentients, who are servants for other souls. And there is dark forces, there is light forces, there's all kind of forces. But we should never forget, that's the problem, that if you believe that is the reality, you give away your force. You in yourself, each one of us, are untouchable.
But you have to understand the darkness in order to put the light on it,
Yeah.
and to dissolve the darkness.
The dark matter is unconsciousness. So if there's things you are not conscious about, that is darkness. And you project all kind of things into that darkness because you don't know how to go to the world of answers. So that is when we are in the world of questions. We will keep on going round and round and round in that circle, and we will call it something new. Next year there will be another fascinating theory about it, and next year another one. It's all, you know, the mind's craving for entertainment, for sensationalism. There's dark forces, yes, but they cannot touch you if you don't want them to. That's a reality of who you are.
But you have to discover it first.
Of course. But you see, there's parallel universes. Every night when we sleep, we go into other realities. And when we wake in the morning, we can have just a slight remembrance of this and that. And sometimes it's surrealistic, or it's really, we cannot really remember, but there was some weird things going on and stuff, you know. But you have also days maybe where you vividly remember everything by detail, you know, and you can actually, if you want to, I can give you advice. Every night before you go to sleep, have something to read, to write, a book or paper or a dictaphone. And when you wake up, maybe you can just only remember a little bit, whatever it is, a color or a shadow or whatever, write it down. And before you go to sleep, ask for permission to get information, or ask you, I want to be taken to the world of answers, please. Then you will get more and more information.
Lucid dreaming.
That's part of it also, but if you go into, this is not a process that you can do within 3 days. It's something that it's a process. And I've done that. And when I did it, really, because one of my good friends, Frank Lorentzen, is one of the best dream interpreters I know, one I have played music with since I was a kid. He helped me through it, you know. And it was so amazing. I mean, it's beyond anything. I went to former lifetimes. I went into parallel universes, what was going on. Right now, when we are sitting here, we are doing something else there and there and there and there. And of course, that cannot be. No, of course not, because we are too primitive we have not learned anything. Just think about a process like dying. The only way why they have managed to scare people off with this COVID-19 is because they haven't heard anything about. There's actually people today who think they are not going to die. Oh, I can complain. I've never heard anything about that. They didn't tell me. Please. You know, this is part of the package, you know. We have to leave sometime. And if you're scared of leaving, if you don't know that this is a process, that you have to go through, and it's really an initiation without which we could not go any further. So we have to know about it. And this is something I've been working with the seer, who helped dying people every day, people who passed, on how to get them over on the other side. I myself have worked many years on hospices with dying people, and know all about that process. And I'm not scared about it, because I know what it's all about. I understand why people are scared about it, because nobody have told about them. But this should be the first thing that we learned when we came to school. Go tell what is it? What is a human being? What kind of, we have access to so many powers, so many things. This is what matters. And if we knew that, do you know why what you call reptilians are here for? They are very, very advanced on technology. Really, really advanced. But in the process to getting there, they have just got rid of all the sensitivity, feeling, generosity,
empathy,
compassion, exactly. So that is why they actually come here, because they want that power. They need that power. They cannot evolve without.
So isn't that also why the archons are feeding on human beings' emotions and anxiety and fear and all of that?
What is going on right now here on Earth? We are about going exactly the same thing by thinking that the computer and this is God. All those, instead of thinking, forget about it. Sit down and try to connect by that instrument. Like the seer said, man is the most advanced and sensitive instrument in the universe right now.
But when they talk about a computer simulation, it's not this
Primitive.
kind of computer, but a much more sophisticated holographic illusion.
You can say that. But what is illusion and what is reality?
That is the important question anyway.
I could also say it in another. What do you want? Where do you want to go? What do you want from life? Go there.
A great question would be if I would choose, or you would choose, to leave at the point of death, not going into the tunnel of light, not going into the white light, not being reincarnated again, because you've been so many times, at least some of us have, supposedly, we think, we feel, and go to Source, go to God, go to that place, or to another place, maybe to a nicer realm or a nicer place to experience.
You can always connect to Source. That's what we're talking about, God consciousness.
So if you understand it, you shouldn't be lured into a possible deception.
Go to God consciousness, go to Source. Yeah, that's what it is all about. But you need to be, what many people, they don't dare to be honest. They want to be something that they aren't. They want to be more evolved than they maybe are. We are evolved, we are enlightened. But there's all this noise between us and that evolvement or that enlightenment that we are carrying around. Because we are fed up. They have actually told us, in order to be a success, you need to be like that, you need to look like that, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, And we are lured into that. But this is childish stuff, When you got mature, you can step back and you can see it. Oh, I have been there now. I understand that. Fine. And I understand why other people are lured into it.
But we still have to work our way through the whole
of course.
Manipulation, but the illusion. We are controlled by the monetary system. We are enslaved by this grip that the monetary system has.
We are enslaved.
We need to make money.
We are enslaved if we want to be. Money, it doesn't matter. It's just toys, What are we here for?
But we still have to make it in order to survive, right?
Yeah. But
which would be great if we could also change that whole system.
We are putting too much energy into that. We were told, if you do what you came here to do, you'll be provided with everything you need. The problem is people, they think they need a whole lot of more than they really need. Just think about some of the richest people here on earth I mean, what are they doing? Nobody can spend that much money. And at the same time, people in here and there are starving and dying, you know. We have a guy like Bill Gates who is now promoted as the big savior of the world. Oh, come on, man. Please. He's making so much money out of this misery. Instead of, if he really wanted to help people, he could go down and help them all, you know, by all the money he's got. This is an illusion. Forget about it. I mean, he will wake up one day, hopefully, and know what it will.
Well, he started by creating an antivirus program for his computer.
I mean, that is what it is. It's childish stuff and it's primitive. I'm talking about, instead of spending our energy on that, you know, spend our energy on what we can actually do and the potential that we have, because that is the best example you can do to anybody is by what you're doing and by what you can achieve by bypassing all this noise and all this crap, and not create more separation what it is, what there already is, because it's only pain and it's only creating more. You won't open up any hearts by creating separation.
But what do we do at the moment where many people are faced by very, very close relatives that they either can't see, or those who are not awake like you are, or other people maybe watching this, they also have families and they also have problems.
Yeah, of course.
How do we become more enlightened and use our full potential and the abilities you talk about? How does that work in the more practical
very
sense?
Simple,
we are dealing with this right now.
Very simple. By looking at your current situation. What do I want from life? Where am I? Yeah? What, you know, we are all in different situations, you know. But when people come to me with problems, you know, I feel that I've been there myself in different lifetimes also, and I can really identify with it. And that was what happened, you know, when I was a child. When that veil was taken aside, I was able to be part of other people's problems, their pains and their suffering and so forth. And of course, as a child, I could not cope with that. It was very overwhelming. But I understood suddenly. For example, in the where we were living, you know, it was a working class place. You know, there was a dwarf, a lady. She was not higher than that, you know, and her life became my life for a period. I felt that I was not growing. You know, I identified so much with her pains and her suffering and everything that she was going through, that I became her for a moment. There was a man who was living on a loft, on a small room, without family. He was always in his working thing and his, working clothes and stuff. He was eating food out of a tin, you know, that he put on. You know, his life, I became identified with him totally. Not just, you know, I was him for a moment. I felt how the loneliness, the deep, deep loneliness of this person. And, you know, the kids were running after him and calling him all kinds of weird stuff. The rumor was that he had murdered someone somehow, somewhere in the past, you know. Funny stuff like that. People were projecting out scapegoats, you know, to take away their own pain. And that can be for only a moment, you know. But I understood all this as a child. Slowly I find out, and I have a deep, deep feeling also for people who, whatever phase they are finding themselves in, but when they come to me, for example, or others, of course, and with their problems, that is because now they have an inkling or a feeling of some change have to occur now. Something must change in my life. So I try to help them open up to see the real problems and not just the symptoms, and we can fix them. But go in and see, listen, you have actually had a former lifetime where this happened, you know, and this is something you have repeated over and over and over again.
So is it encoded in their DNA?
You could say so, but if you cannot,
Reincarnational DNA.
yeah, you could say so, but nothing is more encoded that you can break it, and you can. I mean, if people knew what human beings were capable of, we can travel wherever we want.
You are capable of something very, very profound. You use hands-on healing when you on certain clients who are sick, and you also say that you've been very successful at doing this hands-on healing. But isn't that also what Jesus did? Would you say that you have some Yeshua abilities,
No.
Lars Muhl?
No, I won't, because people would misunderstand that. I'm saying I have abilities like everybody else. The difference is that I and other people, of course, I was lucky to meet a person who could show me in a very practical way everything I read about, But I never thought that I myself at one day should be able to do anything. I totally accepted there was people who was able to do that, no problem. But you should remember, most people today, they don't think that such things are real, that can be. But everybody can do this. And this
is the power of intention. Is it a download that works? Is it a force that works through you when you do it? Have you had the experience to heal somebody from an illness or disease?
Yeah, you connect to source somehow. When people come to my healing workshops, I stopped doing one-to-one healing because I was told, now I know about this, now I have had practical hands-on, now I had to go and teach people about how to connect to this source. So when I have my workshops, people are actually participating, so they have experienced themselves that they can make a difference, by laying on of hands or distant healing or whatever. So wonderful things are happening on those workshops. There's always one or two who have really, what do you call it?
Severe illnesses or problems?
Yeah, and we concentrate on them, and through them, people, they are being aware of their own powers because they participate in this, so they can feel, okay, I've actually been part of this. So that's the best way to start opening people. For example, the little trick that the seer did with taking a very bad wine and somehow
changing the structure of it. You showed that in our first show, yeah.
So, and when people, they have found that they can do the same, that is when the change starts to come. Not only a mental, on an intellectual level, but wow.
So it's like a frequency, using a frequency. Yeah. And how about singing and the voice and also the tones and the connection to healing? You've been working with your wife, who's Gita Ben David, who's also been on our show. And she's been doing this for many years, and she's a sound healer, the tone from heaven. Do you also practice sound healing in your work? And how does it really work, do you think?
Listen, you're your singer yourself, please. You must have experienced when you were on stage, without thinking about healing, thinking about anything, but at certain points you have experienced that there was a connection to those who attended the concert you were saying. And at that moment something happens. I remember it from when I was in there without even thinking about it. I remember one day there was somebody who came backstage and said, oh, that song, it hit something within me, and I felt something was opening. Later on I thought, yeah, that's what's happening, A lot of artists are not aware of this. They think that they have to perform. But actually, when they forget to perform, they become the song. When they become the song, then they connect. When they're performing the song, there's a distance. It can be wonderful and it can be perfect and it can be oh, he looked great, and he sounded great, and what a performance, you know. But we are talking about something much deeper. When you became that song, that's when it was, you know. And it was only there for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but it was there. And when you start working with this on a conscious level, you find out how deep you can go with that. Another thing, interesting thing I have discovered with the guitar right now, he has been for the past 2 or 3 years following up on a hunch she got about her clairvoyant abilities. And it's just amazing how she, by her voice, are able to scan people and start to get information from that person, from all kinds of levels, from the physical levels, from the psychology, and from the spiritual level, and be so precise about naming issues and going in and dealing with them. And this is exactly the same as the seer did. He did not use his voice, he used other abilities. And it's the same thing I experience when I start to go in and find out how to bypass my intellect and my personality, because it has nothing to do there. You know, it's just noise, away with it, you know. I don't want to show off. I could never, for many years, I never did healings or something in public or something. I could never do that. I would never tell people that this was what I was doing or whatever. I would always try to make jokes about it because, you know, this is not something to be pronounced. It's not something, this is something you do because this is what you are here for. It's not something to be bragged about or to be performed or to be, no, I will show you how to do this. And do
So do you think that when some people are doing that, some spiritual teachers and people who are healers, when they do that in public, even having cameras on, do you think that's more a scam to promote it, or do you think they do have the abilities?
I cannot judge that because I'm not here to judge anybody. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me see it and I can tell you my feeling about it. But no, I wouldn't say that. Of course, there is many different kinds of healers, and some have it's their task in this life to go and show people certain things. So that be what it is. But mostly, for my sake, it is something I do in my workshop for people who seriously come and are open towards it.
But the frequency of the sound, obviously, as you know from Gitsep and David, your wife, and what you've used yourself, is the same process that is used for healing, for hands-on healing, and other ways. They are frequencies, and it's projected directly into a place in the body where there's a dis-ease or an illness. And she has experienced also, as you have, that people are being healed from it.
Yeah, of course. It is like, you know, you have a bat, you know. They fly in the darkness and they send out sonar sound in order to find out if there's a wall there, you know. So it's the same thing, you know, by her voice, she's sending a signal. She's trying to connect to that kingdom of heaven within this entity. And it's like a mirror, it'll bounce back. And when you look into a mirror, you see beyond things, you know. First of all, you see yourself. That is why the personality has nothing to do there, because the ego wants to see itself. But that's what you see when you look into a mirror. But if you know how to look into a mirror beyond in the mirror, you see, then is when you see the true thing, the real thing, the real deal. So that's what you have to, that is why the persona and the ego has to be dismantled and have to be done with. Leave it outside, have the guts to go in and connect to source. Don't give up, give it up, you know?
Yeah.
That is what it's all about.
So let's go back and address this darkness again, a Gnostic kind of talk that we have here a little bit more, and about knowing, and I want to talk to you also about knowing what that really is. But why do you think, I don't know if you addressed this before, that we have possibly been quarantined by this archon realm? they are interdimensional, these entities, these demonic entities that can manifest physically by entering a body or a reptilian or whatever, also a human possessed. They're like parasites.
It's only if you allow that to happen.
How or why who allowed the earth to be convoluted or surrounded, quarantined, taken over by this dark force, the archons?
You should be aware that every day, all over the planet, there's different kinds of people from all kinds of different backgrounds who are concentrating on transforming that dark matter and those forces. It be the monks at Mount Athos. At one time there had been 50,000 monks sitting there, meditating on making the world a better place, you know. Now there are 5,000. One day there was a journalist who came and asked one of the monks. It's really funny, you know, because when we look around and see what's going on the earth today, it doesn't seem that your efforts are paying off. And the monk, he said, how do you think it would look like if we didn't do it? And the seer was doing that every day. There's people on Mount Chastity that's doing that every day. There's people all around from different kinds. They are not even connected in that way, but they are doing the same thing because they connect to source and they get their information there in order to do the job and do the work. And this is part of my job every day also, and other people. And it is something I haven't been able to take upon me before now, within the past 2 years. Before that, I was not mature enough to do it. You know, I did not really.
And you didn't want to talk so much about the darkness.
No, I don't. You know, the darkness. Light. You know, when we are talking about light, I'm not talking about light. Light in Aramaic is consciousness. You know, and you see the word for kingdom of heaven that we know that is within us is actually Malkuta de Shem Aya. Shem is that light, is that consciousness. When we can read in the Old Testament that we were born in the image of God, that image is Shem. It's the life force. It's our ticket to source. It goes to that Shem, you know. It's the light that we should not put underneath a bushel. It's the enlightenment thing within us. And Aya, Malkuta de Shem Aya. Aya means which is forever. It can never perish. That is the eternal life within each one of us. And you know, most people, they are not aware of it. The beauty, just think about the beauty of it. It's almost quantum physics that Jesus is talking about. That Malkuta de Shem Aya, the kingdom of heaven, is within you. He's talking about, at the same time, this image of God that nobody talking about the image God. What is the image God? What does?
Many people say that the Nephilim, described in the Bible, and also interpreted as the Anunnaki who came here to Earth eons ago and took over, that they were the alien gods, and that was the image who mated with women here, huh?
Yeah. But that's another story. That's another story. The Bible is made up of many, many layers. And
written in codes, symbolism.
You see, you have the plain text, which is, you know, the story about Adam and Eve and all these things, you know. Behind it, the first layer, the first code, you start to get other informations. Then there is a second layer, or the third layer, because there is the plain text, then there's the next level, then there's the third level, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh layer. Just think about, at some time, there was somebody who wrote that plain text, and at the same time implemented 6 other levels of meaning at the same time. Just think about it. Things that you could only now discover by very, very complicated computer programs. And by that, they have only found now 3 or 4 levels. This
And the rest were taken by the Vatican, right?
No, no, no.
Or from
no.
the Library of Alexandria,
Listen.
which perhaps didn't burn. They took all of the books, huh?
Listen.
No?
The Vatican may know a lot, but I really doubt that they know all these things about how many the layers. That secret is by the rabbis. And the rabbis, they are now working with the third and fourth layer. And
The Kabbalah.
you can say so. But it's beyond that. The Kabbalah is also just it's there to confuse you. Please. You must understand that. The Kabbalah is also childish stuff. This is so much beyond this, you know. There's no, what should I say? Erdin Steinsaltz, who died last year, and I was fortunate to meet him a few times and have conversations with him.
Please tell the audience who that is.
Erdin Steinsaltz was a rabbi who were into the scriptures. He's one of the most revered rabbis ever. And he, you know, I came by him because of a book called The 13-Petaled Rose. You know, The 13-Petaled Rose. Very, very interesting book. He's talking about other entities, angelic forces, about, you know, deep stuff, you know. And I was so taken by it because from all I've read about Kabbalistic stuff, I thought, this is different. This is beyond anything I've written. I've written, you know, the Zohar and all those stuff, you know. So when we came there, you know, Gita had been living in Israel for many years. So she asked me, Lars, who is that rabbi? I actually had a dream that I was supposed to meet a rabbi. So when we came to Israel, and we were together with some of her Israeli friends from when she lived there, she said, Lars, who is that rabbi? And I was actually carrying that book. I said, I think it's Erdin Steinsaltz. So Gita, she said to her friend, how can we meet this man? And I said, oh, come on, please. It would be the same if I came to Denmark and wanted to meet the Queen of Denmark. It's impossible. I would not be able to do that. You cannot meet a man like him. It's beyond anything. And you should not tell Gita such a thing. So she went for a telephone book, and 2 minutes later she talked to his wife. She finds to him and got the direct number for his center at the university. And 2 days later I was sitting in his office having hour-long conversations with him, you know, and I was so welcomed that every time I came I could go in and out of the center, the Erdin Steinsaltz server, as I pleased, you know. And he started to tell me about these things. When he discovered that I was not just somebody who did not know anything about the Jewish tradition and the rabbinic scriptures and the Kabbalistic scriptures, because he is the same. He said, yeah, the Kabbalah, yeah. First of all, he said, you are not one of those Madonna Kabbalistic figures. I said, no, please.
Well.
Red string Kabbalistic. Mm-hmm. No, I said, oh God, thank God. He said.
The Illuminati Kabbalists.
So he started to tell me, and he actually said at one point, if you want to understand what it really is with those codes, I will say, give you an assignment. You can take this with you home, and those who watch this program can try to do the same. Write me a story, he said, that makes sense only on one A4 on your computer, you know. Write a story that makes sense without using the letter E. It can be done, he said. It's a hard task. And if you haven't thought about it, try and go and do it. And I've tried it. It takes, it's really, and next time...
Something that makes sense, though,
Yeah. But you cannot use the letter E.
And you can really write a story, like one-page story, without ever using the letter E.
And when you have done that, you do the same without using the letter E and A. Then you start to understand how it would be to implement the first layer. You write the plain story, and at the same time you implement some other informations. You know? Just think about that you can implement 7 layers at the same time. 6 layers on top of that plain text you're writing, just by writing it, automatically, because you have 5D, 6D perception holographically. Then you start to understand what this is all about.
And then you can tap into it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have the Jewish rabbis and also the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic, and all of those teachers there. They certainly are at the center and at the core of also, global domination also, but also to understand.
These rabbis, some of them are very, very skilled. Some of the world's best mathematicians, and scientists but they are not. You will never see them get the Nobel Prize. They are not out there. Why? Because they don't want us to have this information.
They certainly know the secret to the universe in a sense, a lot of them.
It has nothing to do with Illuminati or with anything like this.
But they use it too. They have this knowledge as well.
I don't know.
But you have been traveling a lot in Israel. And why the fascination with Israel? And, as I just said, it is the center of global attention and the conflict. And it's probably one of the most controversial country in the world, and where this conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, and it's connected to America and Europe and everything. But I mean, you as a mystic and even as a Gnostic maybe in a way, also traveled there to understand more. But why this fascination with this country? It seems to me that you see what is going on in Israel differently from the rest of the world, or people who seeing it from the outside.
What is going on right now between the Jews and the Palestinians and so forth, that is just one level, There's something much more going on beyond that, on a deep, deep level. When at the moment I put foot on that soil, I'm connected to my past as a scribe at the Essene community by the Dead Sea, That's where I really belong. Remember, I was with one of my first bands. I went to Israel in 1969, and on a day off, we were taken to Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were founded. And we were shown around by a guide who told us in that room was the scrollery, and there was the this and that. And suddenly I felt, I was at home. Suddenly I said, please stop. It was not over there. It was actually over there.
How old were you at the time?
I was 18 years old.
18. How come, just a footnote, this will interest the viewers. How did you, with a band from Denmark, how did you even get to go to play in Israel?
Because at that time in '69, we were an upcoming band. Our first single was the single of the week at Radio Luxembourg. The first Danish band who had a kind of international breakthrough. But you see, there was no festivals at that time. So during the summertime, a band like us, there was nothing to do. So our manager wanted us to be, in the spirit, because we were supposed to go to a famous club in London, which would make a kind of breakthrough at that time. So he sent us to Israel on a tour there. And it was the great Haim Saban, who was running that, who was the promoter there, before he became a multimillionaire, and now he has the Saban Film Company. He's supporting not Bill Gates, but Bill Clinton's and all the presidents. He's one of the big donators of Israel.
You knew him?
He was the one who was our promoter there for 3 months. And
really?
He's a really huge name there, But anyway.
And you haven't connected with him since?
No. But, we were just kids, But it was a huge initiation for all of us. And
did the rest of the guys you were there with in your band, did they also feel connection with it?
Of course. After that 3 months, that also we spent time in jail and stuff, because we were playing around with drugs and stuff,
Oh, you were in jail?
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Yeah, we were only we were kids, you know.
This
But
was
anyway,
this was the hippie age, huh?
exactly. So so much happened to us that when we left Israel, we could not care going anywhere. You know, we did not think in careers or in anything. We were, you know, something happened, you know. And to me, it was really, you know, we came as boys and we left as men, young men, you know. It was really a shift, a huge shift in our consciousness. So you should imagine, suddenly I found out, you know, I was very much into Yeshua in many ways. And one night you play in Jerusalem, the next in Nazareth, then you play in Bethlehem, and then suddenly it dawns on you, you're actually there, you know.
But not calling yourself a Christian.
No. The Christians was actually those who wanted to destroy the Gospels that was found at Nag Hammadi in 1945. And but there's so much now happening about the beginning of Christianity that we now know that Jesus and John the Baptist got educated at the Essene community at Qumran, where I was a scribe at that time. And if you go in and see, I understand you have seen my video, The Gate of Light, in that cave where I perform an old, what you would call Kabbalistic or ancient ceremony.
Yeah, people should actually watch that video that is on YouTube, because they see you in Israel in this cave, and it's quite a fascinating documentary.
In that cave, especially in that cave, where Yeshua and all the Essenes, the masters of the Essene, spent their 40 days in the desert. And the desert.
This is not symbolic, Lars.
No.
You believe this to be absolutely real?
No, of course, it is real. The desert in Aramaic means to put yourself in an unprotected state. It's not out in a desert. But if you go out in the desert, you can hide nowhere, so you're unprotected, and so you can connect with source, you know. And you put yourself into that position by stop eating. You only have something to drink, and you have some scriptures that you are meditating on. And when you sit there, you can read in the New Testament. Then the wild animals of the desert comes, and the wild animals are the shadows of that person. In the end, you can read in the New Testament, the Satan comes to Jesus, try to tempt him, and that is the ego.
Is that the burning bush, or is that a different part of the
that's
story?
Moses. No, this is the ego. That's Satan. That's the ego. You know, that comes saying, oh, you don't have to sit here anymore. You can go and do something. No. So he came through that initiation. It's taken out from Egypt, where they did the same thing.
But Buddha did the same thing, huh?
It's from all traditions. They have something.
So is it more symbolic? Buddha did it?
No,
Jesus
it's not symbolic.
Did it? Other
it's
prophets did it?
You have to go through this in order to be initiated, in order to take upon you and you can read, after Jesus was baptized, he went to the 40 days in the desert, and then his mission started, the 3-year mission. And he went out and started to promote all this knowledge. And even some of the Essenes did not like that. They did not know that, you know, he was their Messiah, teacher of righteousness. And they did not expect that he was going out and he was doing it with a woman, you know, like Mary the Magdalene. So he had actually enemies within his own community, his own brotherhood, that did not understand. Please, this is not for ordinary people. Yes, Yeshua said, that's especially for ordinary people, because we want every people to remember who they are. That's why he said, if you follow my example, you can do even greater wonders than I. I can do a lot, but you can do even more.
So the Christians say, different Christian interpretations of the Bible say that Jesus, of course, was not married to Mary Magdalene. Some people say that Mary Magdalene was a whore.
Listen, this was a character murder that happened from the moment Jesus was not on earth anymore and until the church was established 325 years later. They were spent to turning her into a whore. Now the Catholic Church have acknowledged.
Same kind of witch hunt that the media and mainstream media is doing to people now?
No, but now the Church have recognized that there's nowhere you can find out that she was a whore. This is something that was invented. So she's now canonized as a saint, by the Church. They have recognized. You should be aware that the Church have built at Magdala, by the Sea of Galilee, a huge center called the Magdalene Center that was made for women. And when they started to do that, it's the most beautiful place. You should go there. And they found an actually synagogue beneath a whole old city and there they found a magic stone that you must go and see it and put your hands on it, if possible. It's amazing. By that stone, Yeshua and the Magdalene have been preaching. And you can feel it when you're standing. And you can read in the New Testament that he was going around, all around the Sea of Galilee, into every synagogue, and was preaching.
How do we know that man, that he lived as a man? It could have been different people, or he could have looked differently, or...
If you put together connect all the dots, not only from the New Testament, also from the Old Testament, also from the Gnostic scriptures, also from the Gnostic scriptures that not very many people are aware of, also when you go into certain old Jewish scriptures, when you read Josephus, for example, and put it all together, it's in your face. You cannot miss it. And you can see now, and the scholars now know, more and more scholars, and right now a lot of books comes up, for example, that the disciple, the beloved disciple, until now people have said that it was the John, John.
John the Baptist?
Not John the Baptist, but John the disciple.
The disciple.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But now we know it was the Magdalene. It stands actually in the
Mary
Gospel
Magdalene.
The Gospel of Philip, for example. It said that Mary the Magdalene was the disciple that Jesus loved the most and often kissed on the what? On the mouth. Why? Because initiated people, that was the way they recognized each other and revered each other. The kiss of Judas, for example. Why did Judas have to go and kiss Jesus in order to make it known for the Roman soldiers who they were going to pick? He could have just pointed him out. No, he was initiated too. So he had to do it, or else Jesus would, it would look, or the other disciples would say, why he's not doing what he...
Well, the Romans and the Greeks themselves were a little bit into both, huh?
Mary the Magdalene is the beloved disciple. We know that today. And if you put all things together, there's no doubt about it. It would be as the same to point out in the universe that there's only us here in the universe.
A lot of people are saying that.
No, yeah,
But this is at least your interpretation.
No, it is not.
Okay, so this is your knowing, which brings me to the next chapter of this Gnostic talk, because knowing is part of Gnosticism. To know, to feel that you know. But could this knowing, I've spoken to a lot of Gnostics and I use it myself, but this is a critical question. Could this knowing not just be, disinformation from other realms, which the archons certainly can access and work from, and they could fool anybody
if you allow it to be so. But I have never allowed that to be.
But how do you know? How do you know that what you get from another realm, that this is the truth? A lot of people say, I get the download, I have my guides, and then they say something during a session or clairvoyant session, whatever, and different people say different things. Who are we to believe?
You can believe whatever you want. I think when you have been connected to Source, there's no doubt of what that is or what that isn't. You can have all kinds of weird ideas about it, and you can call it what you want,
But if the archons can work with mind control,
Archons-
emotional control,
archons are very-
frequency control, why couldn't they project something from another realm that you can't see, something that seems loving or light or a piece of information that is amazing?
I tell you what, because they don't know what love is. So how can they project it? They are very primitive powers.
If
when
they
it comes-
project it in the white light, where we go to have a wiped memory, to go back not being able to remember.
There is, when you see the two different kinds of light we are talking about, you know which one it is. It takes maturity and it takes experience.
But the archons have still made, they say, that realm that
Who say?
a lot of near-death, thousands, maybe millions of near-death experiences, and people have been able to astral travel and go out of body. I mean, different ways, and people have been through deep meditation. A lot of them, along with all of the near-death experiences, have said kind of the same thing.
I tell you what experience I had. I came to the seer. We have been working for some years, and I went to Montségur. And usually we were living in the house that we were all just staying. And he picked me up at the station, and we came to the house. And he said, "Yeah, tonight I booked a room at the hotel at the inn down at the village." I said, "Why?" "You will find out," he said. Okay. I went there, and they had prepared everything. I had room number 1. And I went up, and I did not know what to expect or what. I just knew that something was going to happen. So I lay down, and after I haven't been lying down, I was taken on the most craziest roller coaster ride I ever tried. I was going down to hellish
Realms?
Yeah. I saw huge gyms, kind of places where people were saying masturbating, reaching out for each other without being able to get connected. I saw, the most horrible thing. I've this in my book, the second book of the old manuscript. I've described it, what really happened, what I saw. And when I woke up in the morning, I felt like Methuselah. I was tired like a 1,000-year-old entity. And as soon as I went in to have a shower and get up, I had so much energy. I was like floating above earth, like this. And every night for half a year, I was taken down into certain things,
Every night?
Yes.
Every night?
Yeah, for half a year. And the same process, not the same things, different. At one point, I started to see there was other travelers, also just shadows who, like me, were on these different realms, like as guests, to see what was going on, on other levels.
Did you see these demon entities?
I saw a lot of shadows going about, And I saw at one point a traveler like myself, who were also there, wide open eyes, like Christ. And I had I felt so much compassion for those people, and so much. I thought these people must be helped in some way or the other. But it was part of what you could call my education by the seer. And he was able to establish kind of connection to realms like that for me to see things. On another occasion, this was later, we were walking on the backside of the mountain from Montségur where no people comes. And I had brought a small tent, and he was finding a place in a nest of a left nest of an eagle nest where he was sleeping, and I slept further down, a step further down in my small tent, and there I was. This is also something I write about in the second book of Magdalene, where this thing where I was connected to the death experience, I was falling like a heavy, heavy iron ball, just falling, 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 falling. I never thought it should end. It was the most terrible thing. Until I found out just to give in and go with it, you know. And suddenly, I just kind of found a place. And then some entities came around me, real light beings, that opened me up to see what it really was, you know. And there was kind of, before that, I was faced with different kinds of emergency exits, you know, with different kinds of light, you know, like go here, go there, you can go. And I somehow...
Like deceivers,
yeah,
trying to get you to go there.
I just found, no, I have to go right to the bottom of this, you know, where maybe...
Towards the darkness in order to get
down, you know. And, you know, just, this was a test, you know. So I've seen those kind of lights, but they have nothing to do with
consciousness. So this is
consciousness.
also what people should be aware of when they leave the body at the point of death, not to just go immediately into the light that's being projected as something, and this wonderful feeling that people who've been at these experiences talk about as bliss.
I have to say something, that the seer, what he actually taught me at that topic was that if you think that you have to protect yourself, then you give energy to the thing that you need protection against. Nothing can touch you if you go in and connect to your source.
Because you're not physical.
Yeah, always connect to source. And when you have found source, I mean, there's nothing that can, and of course, if somebody believes that this is a projection from whoever, what you call it, that might be so. But
that might be what you get, what you experience.
Exactly.
It's all about what you believe and what you feel, what you know.
Exactly.
What you learn in this life.
There's a lot of projection about, you know, Jesus is an invention that the church did, but Yeshua is the real deal. And he was like Buddha, you know, a whole other story, you know. He was another kind of, not that a lot of people get help from Jesus and stuff, but they buy that package, you know, so to speak, that goes with the story that most people know about, you know.
So we do have free will, even if we might have chosen to have this particular life time and this timeline right now with the experiences that we have, that we get.
Of course.
So there is free will still.
I have totally trust in what we represent as humans. And I think one of the reasons that some of those, I would call them lower entities, dark entities that came out, who's very evolved technologically, it is because they are here to get some of the thing they have lost in the process to get where they are now. But we should remember that we are on the same path now, that we think that everything is to be found, all the solutions is to be found in the world of questions, that think that it's all about buttons and screens and stuff. We have screens inside, you know. Just go there, read the Hermetic scriptures, and it's all there. You're told what to do. Read the Gospel of Thomas, follow the scriptures, and see where you go. But you need to have guts to face yourself and your mischiefs and all things. It's, I mean, all of us have to go through this process of polishing the stone, you know?
So what do you actually think is the symbolism behind all of the mask wearing that we are seeing at the moment, which is a political and governmental command, really? What is the mask wearing? We always say people are wearing. We are always wearing a mask in one way or the other. But
Exactly.
now we have to wear a physical face mask.
Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted to say. One thing is that paper mask, but what about the other mask, which is also physically, you know? But it's of course a kind of metaphor for us to show who we really are. and not to hide behind anything. And but
authenticity.
I think when I look into people's eyes, the first thing I did with the seer, the first week when I was together with him at Montségur, he called me over and he said, "Come over here, stand here." And I was standing like, face to face. And he just, okay. And I was looking him into the eyes for I don't know how long. This was something that came back again and again. He said, and we did that. And he was calling gazing into the mirror. And what do you see when you gaze into a mirror? As I said before, you see yourself. And when you have doing that for an hour, you look into another universe, to parallel universes, and you look beyond. And that was exactly what he was able to do when he sat. When I sat beside him in the mornings when he did his healings and the clients were from. Just hang on for a moment. And he just looked into eternity, like this, And he somehow connected to the world of answers. He came back and he said, "Listen, you have to do this and you have to do that. 11 o'clock, I will see to it and it will be gone. Phone me in 3 days and tell me if it's been any better. Okay, thank you, have a good day, bye." That was it. And 11 o'clock precise, he would do the healing and mostly everything was fine. People would phone 3 days later and said, "Yeah, amazing, it's gone, it's fantastic." Yes, but don't forget, I gave you an option, as he called it, to go into a new direction now. And if people phoned back 2 months later and said, "Yeah, it's come back," okay.
Follow, maybe they didn't
follow the option.
Use
they forget, when people get
tools.
well, then they are back to normal, to comfort-seeking, pleasure.
So people should also take off the face masks that we're being commanded to wear. What is the symbolism of it? Wearing it. What is the idea of wearing a face mask when you go into a supermarket or to any place these days?
It's fear. It's just fear-based thing,
Compliance?
Yeah. It's primitive. And if we buy into it, that's what we get.
So we should not use a shut-up mask. We should speak and give and learn.
I think if it was really needed in some circumstance, the problem is that this is something that we have to go through now. And we have to deal with it on some mature level, And remember, in the midst of all this, remember who we really are and what we are capable of.
And how can people apply this right now, like say, really constructively in their own lives in order to use for hope, strength, and love to get out of this mess that we're in right now? A practical tool. How can it manifest in people?
Even if this did not happen, the situation we are in now, each one of us ought to go somewhere in seclusion for some time. And this has actually been an opportunity to do exactly that. In order to face yourself, to go in an unprotected state, to take the 40 days in the desert and face your own shadows and face the Satan, the ego, and take it from there. And when you have done that, there's a wonderful book of a Turkish German woman who's a Sufi, who have described. The book is called 40 Days, and she described what she's going through that 40 days in an apartment in the middle of Istanbul that is closed down, and every day she's brought some kind of food or whatever, but very little, so kind of fasting and reading and meditating and stuff. And it does something. It is a kind of taking off the mask, to be unprotected, to dare to face the source that we are all connected to if we dare to take off that mask, not the paper mask, but the real mask, and get rid of it.
So is that your most important message for people listening to this right now?
You have to dare, you have to have guts to face yourself. It's not about projecting towards all the others. I mean, that's the most easiest thing you can say, that everybody else is an idiot and yourself is, you know, whatever. We are all enlightened beings, and we are on different phases in our path towards the source. But we have to do the work, first and all. And when we do that, we can inspire others to do the same. And I think that's the message. Not to forget, there is a law, a universal law, and that is like a mirror, that law. Every time we don't live up to that law, the law of light or consciousness, God consciousness, we will see a distorted image of ourselves in that mirror. It's being shown to us all the time until we adjust, and that mirror is polished and totally clear, and you can see yourself totally sharp. That is when you polish the mirror of the heart, when you do spiritual work, when you go 40 days in the desert and so forth. Then you are polishing not only the heart, the mirror of the heart, but also the stone that is you, you know. And when that is polished, it can reflect the consciousness on all sides equally. And when that's done, every people who meet you will be inspired by that meeting without you saying a word, you know. So that is the way to go about it.
So bravery and no fear.
No fear. No fear.
You've written so many books and you've done so many lectures also all over the world. And if people want to learn more about your work and maybe purchase your books, there's a lot of them, and get in touch with you, how can they do so?
I have, you know, my books are out in many languages, and the old manuscript is one of them. The Law of Light is another. There is always coming new books out. I have a website, of course, and people can follow me there.
And there's also some contact info if people want to do an interview with you.
Of course, you can
like
go
that.
there.
It's been really amazing, very wonderful, mind-blowing, and really great to have you back on the show again.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you, Lars Muhl, for
the
being
work.
on Age of Truth TV.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much to Lars Muhl, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can also sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruth.tv, as well. Please also subscribe to our alternative channels on BitChute and Brighteon, Age of Truth TV. You will find videos that was previously on this channel that has sadly been taken down. On behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.